Well, today, guys, I'm going to talk about something completely different, and that is couples and finance. So, as you know, we always have a potpourri of topics. I'm just going to touch upon a few things here today. These are going to be some best practices that I have observed. Since the summertime is the time of weddings, and a lot of people are thinking about this, you can also look at our website, by the way, at the blog section. I have a newsletter article on this from this past month, and also a link to one that I wrote a couple years back that are still really great practices if you're having some difficulty with this topic with your spouse or partner. So, a few best practices that I've observed when people are considering combining their finances. Number one is whenever you are getting together in a couple, don't avoid the topic of money. Blah. I know it's not necessarily romantic. It might not be the first thing on the top of your mind, but it's so important. So important. And if you can start off on the right foot by at least talking about money, you're really getting ahead of the game. When you talk about money, it's important not to blame or criticize your partner or yourself. Show a little bit of love. Try to have some open mind as you approach this topic. And part of that is your languaging. If you focus on we instead of you or I, it really helps with the conversation. One of my favorite client stories was that a husband and wife were having some difficulty with discussing financial topics. And it was suggested that they put on their favorite sports team jersey. They both loved and rooted for the same sports team. So when they put on the jersey, they were reminded we are on the same team. We are looking at we, and we want to move forward with our financial goals rather than feeling adversarial. I loved that idea. And the last thing on the don'ts is don't assume. You might assume very easily that everyone grew up thinking that money was a certain way or that a certain expense was good and something else was bad. Let me tell you, folks, not at all. We all have very, very different money attitudes, and it's better to discuss them than to just assume and then get into misunderstanding. How about the do's then? Let's talk about the do's. Do schedule time for a money conversation. Try to have maybe a money date. This is something that Barry Tesler talks about, and you could Google it and find a lot of interesting ideas on how to set aside time when you're not multitasking, when you're just going to talk about money and work on things together, some goals that you can share. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. That goes back to not blaming or criticizing, but seeking first to understand where the other person is coming from before you then jump in with your part, with your ideas. Delegate, build on each other's strengths. There is nothing wrong with agreeing that one person is going to manage the day-to-day bills and the other person's really not going to have much to do with it. If you guys agree that that is one person's strength, that's fine. You don't both have to know everything going on all the time or feel that you both need to be great in finance. Just have a conversation about it and agree to check in at regular intervals. Things change over time. So that goes back to that don't assume. Make sure that you make it okay to maybe once a year. Ryan and I like to have a financial conversation on January 1st every year. We sit down and look at where we've come in the past year, where we are, and what we want our future goals to be. But we always know that it's okay to check in and maybe change things at that regular time. Okay, so do different styles of combining finances here. One joint account or the yours, mine, and ours. And since we are running a little short on time and I want to have time for Q&A, I'm not going to go over these in detail. I would suggest to check out my blog article that talks about these different types of combining finances. The one joint account, very briefly, is just where there is one account and all income and expenses go through that one account. Some couples really like that for the transparency and trust. Another idea is the yours, mine, and ours, where each person has their own accounts and there's a joint account. Some couples prefer some independence, but you have to agree upon the rules of what goes in and out of the joint account.